So let's explain the differences between expenditure reducing and expenditure switching policies and look at a few real-life examples. So expenditure switching policy are policy tools designed to discourage people from buying foreign goods, and we want to encourage them to buy domestic goods instead. And so theoretically, this should improve the current account, like decrease the current account deficit. An example would be something like a supply side policy. So supply side policies that increase the competitiveness of domestic goods not only stimulate our export market, but we're also hoping that some of the citizens of our country will switch and change their purchasing behaviors from foreign goods to domestic goods instead. Now, we all know, though, that supply side policies come with time lags. It might take a long time before we change the behavior of the population, and they also usually cost a lot. So think something like research and development into electric vehicles. That could cost a decade before anything comes to fruition. Number two, protectionist policies. So protectionist policies like tariffs or quotas discourage imports, but we fear that other countries might retaliate and we might cause a trade war as a result. So the third one is exchange rate policies. And exchange rate policies may come as a result of monetary policy. And so these are supposed to influence the price competitiveness of exports and imports. And so we might have a country kind of managing their exchange rate and keeping it very, very devalued, very low. So there are more exports and less imports. But the Marshall-Lerner condition applies. So we have to understand the price elasticity of our imports and exports. And there also might be policy conflicts because we might want to have a very, very, very devalued exchange rate, but the problem of that is we might be pursuing an expansionary monetary policy that causes inflation. And so a real example of expenditure switching policy would be something like the post-Brexit tariffs in the UK. So after Brexit, the UK adjusted its tariff regime. It aimed to encourage consumers and businesses to switch from importing goods from the EU to either domestically produced goods or imports from non-EU countries with whom the UK sought to establish new trade agreements. Now, let's look at expenditures reducing policy. So this is policy that reduces spending in an economy, including imports, and incentivizes producers to find sales abroad, theoretically increasing exports and, again, improving our current account condition. So contractionary monetary and fiscal policy both fall into this basket. There are examples, but the effectiveness of both of these policies depends on the marginal propensity to import. If we don't have a large marginal propensity to import, we're not going to have such a large effect on the current account with these two policies. And because these two policies are contractionary on the demand side, we might actually cause a recession. So if we're asking ourselves the question, what is the total effect on the total spending in an economy? We're asking this question. The answer is there's a negative effect, then it's an expenditure reducing policy. And so an example would be something like the austerity measures in Greece, right? Because Greece went bankrupt. So in response to its debt crisis, Greece implemented austerity measures, including cuts in government spending and increases in taxes. These policies aimed to reduce overall expenditure in the economy to improve the balance of payments and stabilize the economy. Why? Because Greece was borrowing too much money, or it had borrowed too much money in the early 2000s. And so that's expenditure reducing and expenditure switching policy in a nutshell.